this present government has a hidden agenda of clampdown on social media. I don't know if it does. I don't think it does. But it's either that, or secondly, that the people, the president, the vice president, and everyone who should know better is allowing, or they're allowing people who are doing excessive things that they shouldn't do. You know, people do a lot of, sucking up to people and trying to please them because, oh, I want to look good in front of my boss as a security, agency. Or you're allowing that to happen. Or third, or we're all confused. But I know number three is not true. We're not all confused. As citizens, we know our rights. We know that the Constitution makes it clear that fundamental rights exist. Yes, we know there is also responsibility and there's also a limit to the rights. But when you cross the line and begin to say, when you tweet some things, we're watching you or arrest you, when people now say that you're doing that because we're going towards elections in 2019, don't blame them, because the timing is almost perfect. This is 2017. Politicians are now declaring and are getting ready. And I trust that this administration knows better than to link itself to what it was accused of before it came in, which is 1984. Nobody wants to go back to 1984. That's in our past. Nobody wants to go back to the military era. And that exactly is what you're saying when you say something that you tweet can lead to your arrest.
One of those directly affected by this new posturing by the military is the president of Online Publishers Association of Nigeria, Mr. OLUFEMI AWOYEMI. He believes this development is sensitive as it may stifle public expression. His worry is that the military may go beyond their brief as far as implementation is concerned.
I think the principle about monitoring is consistent with what a decent, responsible government should do. The fact that it's a military going to monitor my conversation is something I will worry about. And because there is no law well, there is a law around cybersecurity, but there's no specific law that gives room for me to determine where does my invasion of privacy start, where does the definition of hate speech become modeled up. That creates some uncertainty. But I think it's not something we should totally lose our bearing upon, because I think civil society organizations and those responsible who understand these viewpoints are having conversations with those in government to see how we can harmonize it. And I think it works out for the better of the country.
Despite the fears of social media operators, the government is giving a reassurance that its intentions are for the good of the people and the interest of the nation. The Minister of Information, Alhaji Lai Mohammed, rises strongly in defense of the federal government.
Those who say the government is going to clamp on the freedom of the press, I think are just, exaggerating the issue. Secondly, the report credited to the military that they'll be, monitoring the social media. I think it's a routine thing that military, the security, they do all over the world, monitoring, speeches, monitoring actions, just to balance, just to ensure that there's, no security threat. It does not mean that the military is going to arrest anybody or prosecute anybody because of what he has said on the social media. But there are enough laws in Nigeria to prosecute anybody either for libel, for defamation of character or the like. But the issue about hate speech is quite distinct. And I want to make it clear here that hate speech is not the same thing as freedom of speech or free speech. There's a distinction between hate speech and freedom of expression. This particular phenomenon of hate speech though it's covered under the Terrorism Act, it still gives us a lot of concern. So if the Minister of Interior says they are contemplating fresh legislation, it does not mean that we do not have enough laws, but it means that the government is so concerned. Probably look at, is there any loophole that can be exploited by those purveyors of hate speech today that is not covered in existing laws. For instance, I've heard the opinions of many lawyers saying that there's nothing like hate speech, there's no law against hate speech. So these are things that the government is probably considering and say, look, is there really something that is being exploited by the purveyor of hate speech and fake news. That is not, that we need a new legislation for. But one thing that is clear, this is not meant to stifle the press. Rather, the government is concerned that people who are bent on inciting one part of the country against the other, for whatever reasons, is the clearest danger to our unity.
In spite of these efforts to convince Nigerians on the essence of this intention by the military, some Nigerians are adamant that it's not necessary.
We've got laws around sedition, we've got anti-terrorism laws, we've got laws around libel, we've got the cybercrime law that also mentions hate speech, specifically mentions hate speech. So I don't understand why. I think the problem at times is that some of the officials who speak are just being, the word is not myopic. I think they're trying to, they're trying to please the masters. And it doesn't help, because when you say that and you've forgotten the fact that there are existing laws you can use. So for example, when someone says, oh, we need a new law to make sure that all these people that say wrong things about us on the internet are arrested. If you feel that libel is involved, there is a process already. Go to court. Don't use policemen to intimidate young people or innocent people, either young or old. So there are existing laws that take care of everything we're talking about today.
The military has a right, especially in the fact that you actually have countries go to war and they actually fight cyber war. So the real question you should be talking to the military is, don't worry too much about anti-government rhetorics. What you should focus on in real cyber war, things about fighting people with viruses, with infecting people, whatever, like what we learned about Russia, its intervention, unproven as it were, both in Europe and in America. And those are the kind of things you want to learn from a sovereign military perspective. You can also have domestic type of warfare, whereby people infect people's minds. So I think the argument must not be made from the coloration of why out there they. No, they should. A responsible sovereign government must put its military to understand that traditional warfare is no longer the same way as we talk about in business and say it's all about digital communications. We can do here, we can broadcast live, we can do this. It's the same thing as you can do in the military. So they must equip themselves to do so, but they must do it also within the rule of law.